MarTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello and welcome to this week's MarTechTalk. I'm your host Luke Edwards, and this week we're going to be talking about, does your MarTech align with your business strategy? We're lucky to have three special guests as our panelists this week, who I'll introduce shortly. But first, just to set the scene, we're going to talk about three parts of that overarching subject, and it broadly falls into past, present, and future. And in the past, we've got identifying the underuse of MarTech, existing MarTech, and then in the now, how well integrated is that existing MarTech? Is it serving you? Is it serving you now? Can it be used differently to help you in the future? And then moving to the future, measuring and reporting on whether your MarTech is aligned with your strategy. So which metrics work, which metrics don't, future changes that could help, and that then links into what we're going to be talking about next, which will be our news item. But before we get into that, let me introduce our guest speakers in no particular order. First up, we've got Sanat Balakrishnan. He's the Global Head of Digital at DHL Express. You there, Sanat?
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Sanat. Quite aptly placed in a place of movement. I'm working for DHL. I like that.
I apologize because I'm at the airport because on my way to Berlin now, but apologize for the background noise there.
No, thank you for joining us. And we've also got Liam Pickard, Customer Success Manager. Are you there, Liam?
Yeah, hi, Luke.
Hi, Liam. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
And then we've got Ludmila Barron, Head of Marketing. Oh, yeah, there you are, Ludmila.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're going to start off talking about our news item today, the headline of which is AI is used in marketing by 2/3 of B2B. And you should have that link available to you now if you want to select that, so you can take a look at the article. AI, hot topic at the moment. We're just going to touch on this briefly before we get into the broader subject of discussion. But if any of you want to chime in, any of you got any particular experiences with AI or opinions on AI, because it's quite a hot topic, isn't it? It's, robots are coming to take our jobs, or AI is going to save everything and change everything for the better, and a few bits in between.
I think it's a great development. I mean, obviously, it's going to replace some of the tasks that we are doing. It already is. But thank God, these are the most manual, the most tedious, the most human error-prone tasks. So I'm looking forward to AI taking over and over of the work that, we probably don't even like it to begin with. So we could focus on the creative work that the humans can really bring value to.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think AI's got a lot of real potential for us as marketers and as businesses to look at driving efficiency for ourselves. So if you think about the old days where you'd have multiple systems and you'd look across them to try and work out what you were doing, and then you'd have the human element, which is a costly resource to us. It's our most valuable resource. Taking up a lot of time on transactional and simple actions. And I think where AI for us can become really powerful, particularly combined with machine learning, is automating that contact and that response and allowing our valuable resources to do the more valuable actions in those client relationships. So I'm very excited to see how AI continues to develop.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the need of the hour, and businesses and marketers are adopting, testing it in their fields in their respective way. But I think with every technology comes its complexities, and We have to just be mindful about what it's going to bring, and then accordingly judge the use case of the AI that brings to the market here. And I think it's just the beginning of the ocean, and there's a lot to come in the future. So we're all excited, I'm guessing.
Okay. And have any of you got any experience of AI currently? Have you got systems that are going in at the moment, or plans to add systems in the near future? Be interested to hear.
Yeah, there's one that we're particularly testing very recently. We started it last year, which was the use of AI in the field of media optimization. So basically, what it means is we are using a SaaS plugin which goes and sits into Google Ads, Facebook, LinkedIn, any ads you talk about, and it starts creating an algorithm based on your historical data sets. And then it lays on top of the existing algorithms and gives you recommendations to basically say, okay, for this campaign, use this creative, for this campaign, this, which is kind of like an in-house built-in, but we have a technology which we've brought in which we are building it up. And the results are significant because we've seen an uplift of around, especially in DHL, we closely look conversion ratio because most of our digital campaigns are lead driven, performance driven, and therefore we associate every lead to a revenue cycle. So we look at a ratio called suspect to prospect, prospect to client, and client to revenue. And in markets where we tested it, like we tested it in 4 markets, India, US, UK, and New Zealand, which is currently happening, we've seen uplift of around 27% in success to suspect to prospect ratio, which is in comparison to a similar campaign that were done before. So we see a lot of uplift within a span of 3 months to 4 months, which I think is what I'm mentioning, right? The time span that AI can really make difference is huge. But what is important to determine is what is the use case you're trying to solve with the AI. And in our case, it's basically optimization from a media standpoint, where we're trying to bring uplift.
Very powerful tool, just finding the correct way to apply it to your needs. Sounds like a very important part of that. And it does make me think that you're going to have all this extra data coming in. Is this actually going to, rather than take away jobs, end up creating more jobs or more work for individuals within their roles because of this amount of data that you have to use, to monetize, to work out what to do with?
As I said, right, with every technology comes complexity. No technology is going to make your life easy, right? So there's going to be a lot of data. Yes, there is a lot of data that comes in. But I think along with the data, what comes along is the recommendation that the AI splits in. So it's not just the data, but what to do with the data is also coming in. So it's actually saying, okay, this data, try to switch this on, switch it off. So the recommendation is populated. So the people who are working on the back end can literally decide, should we apply that recommendation or reject the recommendation? And that is also some sort of an intelligence we need to build over a period of time that we could, there may be possible that we may reject a recommendation that could have been useful for us, but that over a period of time is when we kind of try to gauge which recommendation is good and not. But it's not just the data, but also recommendation that comes along with the data.
I see. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think it's time for us to move into our first discussion point now. Identifying underuse of your existing MarTech. Don't know if any of you would like to chime in.
Identifying the underuse of your MarTechs, it's an important thing to actually think about. I've worked for a number of organizations over the year where we've invested in different tools, from CRMs to chatbots to automated responders. And it's a real danger sometimes to pick up that technology, run with it for a little bit without a clear definition of what you're trying to achieve. And it leads to a natural area where people get that sort of early adopter attitude of, right, well, we'll start running with it. And then you can be pulled away with everything else that's going on within your business and forget about that particular piece. and not really developed the strategy around how you're using that technology. So, from my own experiences recently, we've been using a lot of video in the work that I do at Personal Group. And we have a video platform, a very, very good video platform, really, really good analytics behind it, had a really big engagement hub. And when I joined the organization around about 9 months ago, it wasn't really being utilized that much at all for what we were paying. It had been brought in by a section of our business with some really, really good intention. But because we didn't really approach it from a strategic perspective, we didn't really look at it, and how we use that tactic to deliver against our metrics. There was a big initial sort of use, and then it dipped off, and no one really sort of monitored it and looked at it until the finances came up, and we started looking at budgets. And in the background, unbeknownst to sort of various other people, my department, where we deliver a SaaS product around employee benefits, we'd started using this product very specifically around our onboarding and our adoption and our education and training for our clients, and also internally within my team. But because we hadn't really monitored the use of it across the rest of the group, there was just this assumption that everyone was using this tool. We were in a position last year where actually this tool that had become very ingrained in our very important step of our process in that success journey suddenly became under threat. So I think having the measures and knowing what you want out of that MarTech is really important, because you want to make sure you've got the right buy-in from the stakeholders. Because if it's being underutilized, all you're going to end up with is a scenario where you've not achieved the goals you set out to run with. And you've also got to think about what that means for you from a business perspective on your budget, how that forecast is then impacted. So it's really important to pick up all of your MarTech with a specific goal, in my opinion. Because if you are looking across your stack and going, we've got all these great tools, it very quickly adds up to a very, very big chunk of your budget. And we mentioned things there like AI right at the start, and obviously a big talk around AI today. It's not the cheapest element to bring into your business. And if you want to make it successful and really see the uplifts that can be gained from this, and we've seen it with lots of different products over the years as marketers and business people, from CRMs to automation platforms. You pick up all these little pieces, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of activity that's disconnected. Senat was talking about data there. You end up with a lot of data that's not connected, and you're not doing anything with it. So you're just spinning your wheels. So I think if you do bring MarTech in, you've got to utilize it, and you've got to know what your measures are to be able to see whether or not that utilization is being effective.
Thank you.
It's a very good point, Liam, that you said make sure that your MarTech tools are utilized. And I think
I can go next. Oh, there's been ladies first. You can go, of course.
You're okay to carry on, Labina.
And it's great when the strategy comes first and the tools follow. But what we do find in really big corporations, when strategies shift every couple of years, and then there's some tools that have been selected and used and loved by some departments that are not maybe applicable to the use cases of other departments, that it could be a challenge, especially not in the tech-first companies, where a tech department is maybe an organization that evolved later, to really streamline all the tools and to align them with the strategy and adapt them, because a lot of tools also have different uses. So if strategy shifts, you could use the metrics that fill the needs of the new strategies as well, while keeping the same tools in your ecosystem.
That's an interesting point about older companies that perhaps are a bit reticent to adopt new technologies, and then perhaps getting rid of some of your MarTech too soon, not even realizing how it can be of use now or maybe in the future. So yeah, it's an interesting point that it's quite a difficult position to juggle what you keep and what you get rid of. when you perhaps don't know down the line what you'll need.
Yeah.
Sanat, I hear you back online there.
No, I think absolutely, it's quite a difficult decision to take, what to keep and what to phase out, especially if that particular part of the technology has been in the system for a long time. It's actually difficult to kind of take them out. But we've had a very similar instances in DHL where we have to phase out technology because it wasn't really justifying the use case that we've had. I think last year it was all the stakeholders that kind of agreed that it's not worth the investment that we do, because there's more out there in the market for the same cost that we could do more. And therefore we decided in terms of pursuit of replacing that with a much more innovative tech, which does the same thing but more. And then we are in the phase of rolling that technology across all the countries at the moment. So yeah, it was a decision. It was a difficult step. It took 2 years for everybody to kind of agree to that point, but then finally it happened, right? The change is inevitable, isn't it? Digital transformation is one good example of it.
Thank you. We've had a question here from Abby Whitcomb. Thank you, Abby. It says, "Hi all, great episode so far. What tools do each of you find the most useful?" Anyone got anything that jumps out, comes to mind?
I have an answer just to that question, and it also resonates with my previous answer to your question about the underuse case. We are currently using Marketo, Adobe tool, which is, in my experience, has been an amazing tool, especially because of the user groups and the kind of live cases that we were able to build in, and the kind of complexity. As an organization with DHL, we have more than 200 countries, 220 that we need to bring in together. And we needed an ecosystem which allows these 220 countries to be having a workspace and start doing what they can do with a global center of excellence. And we were able to do that with Marketo, which much more, and the whole system today, whether it started a little small with test in Netherlands, but today, because the test was so successful, the scalability is almost close to 150 countries as of today, and more 50 countries to come by end of this year. Therefore, that tool is huge. At least in our experience, it has brought a lot of value. When you look at a customer journey and a customer life cycle, Marketer was able to build programs that relates to each of these customer journey in the, let's say, engagement, acquisition, conversion on loyalty scheme. The programs have really impacted the revenue cycle for us at the CRM side. And therefore, that tool is really valuable, at least it's actually working really good for DHL Express, for the investment that we do with Adobe for that. And there, of course, there is a community where we share and learn. So not just between DHL Express, but of late, I have recently learned that there's a Marketer user group across the world. So there's a user group in the US, there's a user group in India, who just talks about how to use Marketer effectively, irrespective of whatever country and whatever client you're working with. Those user groups do give a lot of advice, feedback for use cases that we may not even thought about. So there's a lot of interaction with that tool, not just as a user, but also interaction outside from different companies that we get to hear what they do and if we can adopt it or not, or if we can share our cases and some companies can adopt it or not. So there's a lot that we've learned in the last 1 year at least.
I hope that answers your question, Abby. Liam, Ludmila, I don't know if you wanted to add any of your experiences. I've got another question if not.
So, I mean, there's a couple of tools that I find really useful and have done over the years. So I mentioned obviously sort of the video program that we're running as part of our adoption process. So we use a tool called On24 for that currently. And a bit similar to what Sanat was saying there in terms of, the support that we get has been really, really useful, really, really good. But where it's been changing the game for me and my team in particular is around the adoption process. Again, coming back to my point earlier of that human interaction being highly valuable. So we have clients that span from small one-man businesses up to enterprises that land on our product. And we were spending all of our time dealing with lots of these smaller businesses that we were working with. And by using On24 and driving that video through and automating their journey and giving them sort of a step-by-step guide to their learning and adoption, married up with the contact strategy from our human resource, we've really seen a change in our churn number, particularly during the first sort of 3 to 6 months that people are with us. So it's been a really valuable resource for freeing up the time to allow our team to actually follow up with customers and find out a little bit more about their business and how we can help them, rather than just trying to get them set up on the system and if you need something, raise your hand. It's allowed us to be more proactive. And you'll also always hear me championing CRM anywhere I go. I grew up on CRMs. It's still to this day the most valuable resource of pulling all of that information together for me to be able to then look at the rest of my strategy. What tactics are working? What learnings are we getting out of it? So developing a really close relationship with your CRM provider, always a great thing to do.
I would like maybe to add also if this is a general question about how to choose a tech tool that's useful in marketing. We have this process where technology is involved in every new use case selection of a tool for all the marketing departments. And what I find, the tools that are the most useful don't only fit the use case of the department or team that's requesting this, but also in general simplifies processes or removes redundancies. And then it's also very easy to get a buy-in and also to scale it to other departments if the new UX is more user-friendly and so on. Also, it has to plug in well into your ecosystem. So to exchange data seamlessly, for example. And it also, with some metrics, you can measure how well it fits with your strategy, especially important for our topic and especially important for selection of new tools now that you do have a strategy. So for example, even if the same simplifying processes function, if it already decreases the time to market for new campaigns on content, that's already a plus, and you could really measure it. And I always recommend future-proof tools. So there's a lot of already AI-powered marketing technology tools. It could be a small but agile company that really responds to the market trends, or it could be a well-established tech giant with a way of working that is really signing on the new and the best top-of-class, like Salesforce announced joining forces with OpenAI. So this is what I would look for in selecting a new tool.
Brilliant, thank you. There you go, Abby. Plenty for you there. I've got another question from Jimmy Carlton, so I think I'll move straight on to that. He says, underutilization. Is this generally a top-down problem where tools are added without full buy-in? Or is this a bottom-up problem where the shiny new thing isn't quite as useful as we first thought? Thank you, Jimmy.
Simple answer from me, bit of both. I've seen both happen. I've experienced both. I've done both. I don't know if Sunip and Lumila, if you feel any different about that.
Yeah, we're big enough to have the range.
And I think no, I feel like it also depends on the company as well, right? As in our case, we've seen it has been a lot of a top-down problem, to be honest. But at some point, that changes into kind of how to course-correct, because top-down problems are sometimes just the wish list that comes top-down. But if you don't have the people who are going to take it and run it, questioning that why and why not, then it's always a top-down problem that the wish list just keeps pouring you. And that used to happen in an organization for a long time, but obviously at one point, the digital transformation or course correction had to kind of question why and why not, and therefore the top-down problem for a long term solves. And I think Yeah, I mean, the basic answer for that, for at least for DHL Express, it has been a top-down problem. But I can honestly say in the last 1.5 year, we are course correcting that.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even a problem. It could be that the tool is not used very often, but it definitely provides the value for its price for those times that it is used. Underutilization can also happen when we're paying a license for a very complex and all-inclusive package, and we use only one feature that maybe is also available in some other tool that's much cheaper already in your ecosystem. But in terms of exactly where the reason lies for a big company with a lot of different departments and teams, there's often a range of reasons. It could be a top-down of something that was rolled out company-wide, but is not a fit for purpose for a particular team or their way of working. Especially we are a fashion tech company, a team of designers, of clothes designers can work very different ways than technology teams. So and yeah, sometimes the underutilization is related to really not enough planning that went in, like you're saying, Jimmy, the new shiny thing maybe doesn't plug into our data ecosystem as well as it was advertised. So there could be a learning curve there as well.
Okay, thanks everybody. Hope that helps, Jimmy. He's asked for a good war story of a really bad top-down scenario.
So I've got one for you, Jimmy. So I used to work for a marketing agency, and we did a lot of content production, and we were doing a big push around driving new sales funnels. And boss of the business saw a product, thought it was really, really great, all singing, all dancing, let's bring it in. And it got thrown over the fence a bit like a hand grenade, and landed in my lap. Go and make this work. Our clients are going to love it. We're going to revolutionize the way we drive sales and lead generation. And what we very quickly discovered, because it hadn't been through sort of proper testing, we hadn't really tested it on ourselves effectively. There were some technical issues in there, which we needed to then speak to a resource to solve because we didn't have that technical resource in-house. Meanwhile, we had clients that were already lining up for this that I was the account manager for. And a few difficult discussions on delayed timelines while we actually got to grips with the technology and then pushed the technology out. And after about 6 months, we dropped the technology in favor of something that we already had. Coming back, I forget if it was you, Snap, or you, Ludmilla, that spoke about, getting a system that's all singing, all dancing and using like 10%. We were in that situation. We already had a technology that could do it. So a lot of time and money and investment went into a solution that was the right type of solution, just the wrong product for us because the top had sort of gone, yeah, we'll run with that. Maybe it was the same boss as you, Jimmy.
Brilliant. Well, that brings us on to our next talking point quite nicely then. How well integrated is your existing MarTech? I'm going to leave that open. Let that stew a little bit. See what bubbles to the surface. Anything?
For us, it's a work in progress. It's a constant work in progress. Something comes in from one side, you want to connect it to the other processes and streams, especially data streams, and then new developments in the market. So for us, it's a constant work in progress to integrate all the MarTech tools.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it's pretty much the same. It's a constant evolution, isn't it? That we constantly have to keep looking into. A well-integrated tech system is always a dream. It's always the dream come true to be able to make it well integrated. But I'm sorry for that background noise. But there is always a constant effort to make it well integrated, especially to make sure that the data is able to flow from one end to another end. and being able to use for its use cases in all the systems. As I mentioned, Marketo in my previous conversation, it's one of the big chunk within our MarTech stack, but there's a lot others that need to speak with each other. At some point they don't, for various technical reasons. To make it happen is the evolution that I was talking about. So it's a constant try that we are having with DHL today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about integrating your marketing well. I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard the stories for years about how sales and marketing need to be better aligned. And with things like AI in particular, our marketing and our IT need to get better aligned. There is a real need for so that we're saying, the cross-population of data. And if we're going to start putting that into an AI scenario, we need to get our systems talking to each other so that we can see every aspect that we need to from a strategic view. If we're leading a strategy, and then if we're delivering down in tactics, we want to know that the source of information we're getting is going to be strong, it's going to be truthful, and have a certain level of certainty towards it to allow us to make those decisions. I think if we're talking about integration, it's a big project for everyone that I speak to in the marketplace, in terms of being able to understand what's good data, what's bad data, how do we interpret and use that. Otherwise, a bit like some of the mornings I've had, I'm sure many people have, where you've got 2 spreadsheets on one screen, 2 spreadsheets on another, a notepad in front of you, and a lot of coffee to get to the end of this project. Getting that integration right, it works for everybody across the stack. And I'm not just talking about us as marketers. If you've got salespeople that are relying on information, relying on triggers and interventions, something that happens over in zone A really does have an effect on zone Z. Those little effects that we have that we can learn from and collectively get our heads together around. There's always going to be that requirement to push pieces together to get to the best answer.
Yeah, and I like your point.
To Liam's point, there's one thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Leela, go ahead. No, I said, just wanted to add to Liam's point. If there's one team that we constantly fight in DHL, it's with IT.
Hope your IT guys aren't watching today, Sanam.
But that's so interesting because
I hope to at least get the message.
It's interesting because my team actually sits in the technology and supports different marketing departments. And for us, I like your point, the same point, Liam, about aligning IT and MarTech. For us, as a multi-brand corporation, it can be also an added challenge because the marketing for each brand could be quite specific, and it should be because the audience is different. But we want to leverage the tech across all brands. So it's an interesting then challenge to align the same tech stack with different strategies and with different marketing tools. Yeah.
That is, I feel like I've been teased there. That's really interesting. How do you do that? Because that's, if you've got something that works on one and not on another, does it just come down to finances, or is it more complicated than that?
More than anything, alignment. So the marketing technology department is a global department across all brands. But let's say marketing operations teams sit within a specific brand and reporting to the marketing or brand officer to that brand. And that makes perfect sense because they have a completely different strategy, and as they should. But those places where we can, and especially if something works really, really well, we've had really good results after already rolling it out for one brand. There's a really good practice of knowledge sharing with other brands. And then, basically we buy it for one brand, the other brands can have it for free. So that works well as well.
Economies of scale.
Okay. I think we're looking at about 10 minutes out now, so we'll move on to our last talking point, measuring and reporting on whether your MarTech is aligned with your strategy. Which metrics work? I know finances are going to be a big one here, but maybe if we, is that number, actually that we can start with that. Is that number one?
ROI is always going to be on the topic of conversation. What are we spending? Are we getting a result out of it that impacts us effectively as a business from a financial level? I think it is. If it's not number one, it's definitely in the top three. And I think that depends a little bit on your business culture. Some companies really want to make sure that their MarTech isn't just servicing them as a business, but they want to make sure it's servicing their customers as well. So there are certain tools out there that you would use and maybe bring into your strategy, not because they're going to give you a big uplift and put an extra couple of marks on your profit percentages, but they're going to actually help the customer have a more positive experience. And we know that if we have positive experiences, that leads to longer lifetime experience with the customer, and obviously that will eventually have a financial impact. But it's not our core metric around that particular piece of technology. It might simply be, is that giving us a better net promoter score when we survey our customer base? Do they like that technology? Does it service them? So I think it's again, we come back to points that I think everybody on this call's made today in terms of understanding what you want your technology to do and deliver for you. And when you understand that, you can really start trying to tie metrics towards it. So I mentioned obviously the video product that I've been talking about, and the metric for us there is conversion and adoption. Yes, those have a financial impact for us, but what I'm really looking for is, am I able to get people onto my platform effectively? Do they enjoy that experience? And if they enjoy that experience and complete their free trial period, are they suitably prepared to go into a paid environment? So my end goal is that financial piece, but actually it's the client experience all the way up to there that's actually really important for me.
Well, I can partially resonate with that. Of course, I think ROI, as Liam mentioned, is always going to be that one KPI will remain consistent for all the functions who are interested in knowing what's happening in MarTech. But I think one of the main challenge that we always had and will always have is sometimes the technology may deliver on the results, let's say from a measurement perspective, but it's always difficult to then attribute the cost of that technology to be against that conversion point. I'll give you an example. There's a SaaS tool that we are using. It's been globally negotiated. There's a global price that we pay. So that price is dependent on how many countries uses it and things like that. But it's definitely driving value in our campaigns. We can see the Google campaigns are optimized. We can see Facebook is optimized. LinkedIn is optimized. So there is campaign ROI, but it's difficult to attribute that campaign ROI for that one single technology cost that we've paid, because it's not because of that cost that we paid there is value in these channels. It's because of the runtime, the intelligence that the technology has developed over a period of time. And there's always a question that finance comes and says, okay, we are investing in technology this much. What does it bring in return? So in return is actually the campaign ROI, but it's not directly attributed to the technology. So at DHL, we always have to dissect the technology cost and the cost that it relates to whatever it is on, let's say the Google cost, the Facebook and things like that, and then try to kind of come up with a measurement metric only to justify that technology cost that we're investing in, which I understand it's fair because we have to invest more, and to be able to invest more, we need to tell a story, a positive story, whether the investment has brought in value or not. But sometimes it's always a chicken and an egg story.
Yes, and especially when it comes to the longer term strategy, then other metrics other than the immediate effect on ROI are also important. Like Liam, you mentioned the customer satisfaction scores, for example, or in the example of long-term strategy like building loyalty. and the membership base for a brand, then it's how engaged the members are, how easy it is to sign up, how many new members this better tool brought in, or how much easier it became to use.
We've got another question that I think I missed earlier there from Marianne, who nearly guessed your airport sign-up. So I think she deserves to have that read out. So we'll go back. So where exactly does MarTech sit? In my organization, various tools are owned and run by IT. Is that the right thing to do?
That's exactly the use case I mentioned to Liam, that why we fight with IT a lot. Because sometimes the technology owner is not defined, and ultimately, because it's not defined, it automatically goes and sits under information IT department, but which is what we've course corrected in the last 1 year. But in our organization specifically today, the MarTech tools sit under MarTech team, which is marketing team, but there is always an overlap of the IT and the MarTech team, because they are the ones supporting from an IT perspective in terms of high data deployment or backend and things like that. But there are very exclusive MarTech tools that can not need IT and therefore does not need an overlap. So I would say it's a combination of both, but majority of the tools for marketing technology sits within the MarTech team, unless there is a big overlap with the IT team, which needs a lot of backend work.
Yeah, I think you're right, Sanat. There's, I mean, for me, I think very much a case of understanding, again, what you're setting out to achieve with the tech that you're looking into. So if you're take integration, data warehousing as an example, there's an area where I wouldn't want somebody saying marketing leading that project. I'd want marketing input, because I'd want to know, hey, look, what outcomes do you guys want? What are you looking to discover? How would you like it to be presented? But because it's a much more IT-centric solution that's required, I've been looking at IT as the leaders within that. Similarly, there's plenty of solutions out there that need to be led from a marketing perspective and then brought in from IT for IT to be able to say, hey, look, this works with our systems. We can integrate this and make it part of that MarTech strategy that we've got. Obviously, we spoke about integration earlier and things like AI. They're important that we understand that anything we bring in can then feed into that ecosystem. So I think it's understanding, what you're setting out to achieve and who should be leading in there, and creating that, collaboration between the two departments, that alignment between the two, of having a very open and honest discussion, and not getting into those discussions sometimes where people are, that it's tech, I want it to be IT leading it, X, Y, and Z. Oh, it's a marketing tool, I want this. I think we need to be open and honest, and take ego out of the situation, and be, what's the best solution for the best result. So I don't think it's an easy answer to say, oh, it sits with IT, it sits with marketing or finance or whoever. I think everybody needs to be around that table and agree who is leading the project.
I agree with you, and we've had really good experience with cross-department teams, like value stream teams, where individuals have their reporting lines to their respective departments, like marketing or technology, but we work together throughout the procurement process, and there is a very easy split of responsibilities there, where the business owner from the marketing department provides the business requirements for this tool, make sure the shortlisted vendors can fulfill all of those use cases, and the technology department makes sure that it has the tech specs according to our standards. There's also security involved, and whoever else needs to be involved. So it's all about checks and balances, and also depends a bit on the use case, because if we get a license that comes with full support, that a business owner can be fully empowered to have full ownership over it, as long as throughout the procurement and selection process, we've made sure that from the technology and security and all of these perspectives is good to go. Then we don't need to touch it, as long as we have an oversight and it's plugged in correctly to our ecosystem.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm aware we've run out of time this week, but just leaves me to say thank you very much, Ludmila, Liam, Sanup. You've all brought some wonderful insights there, and I think I can speak on behalf of the audience when I say there's some real gems in there. So thank you, much appreciated. If anyone wants to join us next week, we're going to be diving a bit deeper into that AI news that we touched on. We're going to be tackling the subject, are humans holding back your marketing AI? Should be an interesting one. Okay, thank you and goodbye.